What if your soul were leaving you an easily accessible trail of daily breadcrumbs to find your own personal path to happiness, prosperity, and purpose? On this special episode of DreamSpeak, we'll be having an in-depth discussion about a dream interpretation book entitled Symbol and Synchronicity, Learning the Soul's Language in Dreams and Waking Life, written by friend of the show and talented dream interpreter, Julie Loar. Hi, dreamers. Thank you for learning with us today on DreamSpeak. I'm Rika.
And I'm Thomas.
And this is the podcast about dreams that teaches you a complete system to help you listen to your dreams and get the guidance they're providing you every day. Julie is the multiple award-winning author of a Loar anthology, Goddesses for Every Day, Messengers, which I'm reading right now, and it's a wonderful novel, The Hidden Power of Everyday Things, and Tarot and Dream Interpretation. She's the co-creator of Quintangled, a game of strategy, chance, and destiny, which is a board game meant to teach people about the hero's journey. And we own that game. We've played it, and we had a lot of fun with it. Her newest book, which we'll be discussing today, Symbol and Synchronicity, is also now available in ebook and audiobook formats. Visit her website, julieloar.com, JULIELOAR.com, to purchase the book, book a session, or find out more about her other offerings.
Which are many, right?
Many offerings. So, Thomas, I really love this book. It's very much in alignment with the way that we do our dream interpretation. So why don't you start by sort of summarizing the book and, the various parts of it?
So Symbol and Synchronicity is a book that we think would be a great starting point for people that would like to form a deeper relationship with their dreams. We think people that are wanting to learn dream interpretation as a goal could probably begin with this book. Part 1 goes into great depth about the fascinating ways that ancient cultures used to relate to their dreams and how much more of a place of honor and importance dreams used to hold in societies that we all know, like Greece and Rome, like Egypt. And then it moves into sort of the fundamentals of dream interpretation. And you get a short dream dictionary, you get the 7 steps of dream work, and you get some example dreams. And it really kind of helps you have a grounding, and then you get into the work.
Yeah, that's one of the things I love about it is that introduction. In most dream books, you don't get that background. And Julie is a consummate researcher. All of her books, they're very detailed in a lot of ways.
One of the cool things about the early part of this book is that she goes into some depth about the contemporary scientific research on dreams and also sleep science. Mm-hmm. And so I think some people are going to really connect with that section. It's going to help lay the groundwork for them to understand why dream interpretation might be relevant to our world today.
What other book I found really fascinating on that topic is called Why We Sleep. It was really helpful for me to read that. At the time, there were family members that had dementia and were not sleeping very much. So I really want to see what the connection was between dementia and sleep. And actually, there is a very strong connection. It's really important for us to get enough sleep. And when we sleep enough, then we dream more. We go through these cycles through the night. And usually more towards the morning, we're having longer REM cycles. And that's generally when we tend to remember our dreams the best.
That's always been true for me. Some people remember them in the middle of the night, and you are somebody who does that on occasion. Mm-hmm. I'll do it rarely. But for most people, it's those morning dreams that are the most memorable.
Yeah.
But one of the things that I find interesting about this book is how her system of looking at the mind and the different aspects of the mind, the ways that symbols and people are connected to the parts of our mind and how we get information from those levels of mind, it's almost an exact match for the theory of mind that we use, that we call tri-mind.
Mm-hmm. But she has different terminology for those different parts of mind, which to her seemed to make more sense based on her background and her Jungian philosophy. And so what we call the conscious mind, she calls self-conscious. And what we call the subconscious mind, she calls paraconscious. And what we call the superconscious mind, she calls metaconscious. So it's just different terminology, but really the same thing. That's her anatomy of the psyche.
And I'm trying to remember right now what tarot card she directed me to. What's that really common deck that everybody seems to have? Rider. Rider-Waite. Yeah, she referred me to the art on one major arcana of the Rider-Waite deck because she said it was a really great visual metaphor for the way she thinks of the three parts of mind. And it really is in alignment with the way that we think of them too, but that was just a fun visual analogy. And I don't think she mentions that in the book, so that's a little bonus for you. Let me just figure out what that card is real quick. So the major arcana was actually the Lovers. And the Lovers is depicted with a man and a woman under the light of the sun. And those are the three parts of mind in the way that Julie thinks of them. As we always talk about the opposite gender rule, for me, the man on the card would be my self-conscious. The woman on the card would be my paraconscious. And then the sun itself and the spirit or deity or whatever that's on the card would be the metaconscious. Mm-hmm. And for you, it'd be the opposite.
Right.
It's pretty neat.
Yeah. So one thing about this book is that she actually had a dream about writing this book, that she was supposed to bring this out into the world. And she gets a lot of her messages through her dreams, obviously. And
it's just kind of a neat little story about the book because it really, I think, says something about the power of dream interpretation. You and I, as well as Julie Loar, believe that people deserve to have access to this incredible guidance. And we want to help people have access to that guidance. We live our life with the guidance of our dreams, and it helps us to be happier and more fulfilled. And so the project of writing this book, which was a pretty massive undertaking, started with her realizing that it was part of her life mission, that she needed to take all of the accumulated wisdom from her many years of metaphysical study and then share more about her dream work and her method.
Yeah, she's been studying metaphysics since the 70s for a very long time. She's taken 19 trips to Egypt, I believe. She has a really strong connection to Egypt. She talks about that in the book.
Yeah, in a really interesting way. She's got some cool Egyptian dreams as well as talking about the way that their culture integrated dream work.
Mm-hmm. One of the parts in the beginning of the book where she gives a lot of background about other cultures was when she talked about the temples of Asclepius and the rituals that people would make to go to these dream temples. They would make pilgrimages, basically, and prepare themselves for several days, with the help of
temple priests, more or less.
And then they would prepare themselves to, get guidance for their life, to have big dreams while they were there. And that was actually kind of a common thing for a lot of cultures, ancient cultures, because they revered their dreams and they put a lot more stock into what dreams could help them with in their daily lives.
And as a result of that, a lot of the pilgrimages were for physical healing.
True. But
so people would use their dreams to help them with physical healing, which we've done one episode that was almost solely focused on a physical healing that you obtained from setting an intention for a dream, which is exactly what these temples were set up to do.
Mm-hmm. And there was also healing on all the other levels because the physical is the last place that things show up for us. Right?
Yeah. I think we both view that the same way because we've had a lot of experience with it in our waking life, through our spiritual practices, and also through our dream life. We can see sometimes things coming like a slow motion train from a long way away. Mm-hmm. They're soul level things, and then they become more, a little bit more of a complex or an issue, and then they're psychological level things. But ultimately they do land in our bodies, it seems.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting because talking about the temples of Asclepius reminds me of our good old dream group from back when we lived in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. that we call DreamSpeak as well. And that's how all this started, was an in-person meetup on meetup.com, if anybody remembers that website.
When did we start that? Like 2011 or 12, something like that?
That sounds about right, maybe 2011. And we had a lot of really interesting groups. We'd do it about every 3 weeks for a period of years, but there were regulars, and we got to be really close with some of our regulars, and those people really latched onto dream interpretation and took away the gift that we were trying to give. They became dream interpreters in their own right and were able to use that to really enhance their lives. And one of the regulars, with all of his spiritual background, he picked up on dream interpretation really fast.
He sure did. He and his partner at the time had some fascinating dreams together where they would actually co-inhabit the same dream. And I think that's a pretty rare ability or skill that some people have.
And I know it can be developed too. And there's even a little section in this book where Julie mentions shared dreaming, actually.
Yeah, that's right. So our friend, he actually, one of his dreams, he met Asclepius in his dream, and he had no idea who that was. He wasn't even sure how to pronounce the name. I'm not even really sure how to pronounce the name, but
we'd have to ask.
We're going with Asclepius.
Yeah, we'd have to ask Julie Loar about that because she's researched it and she's got it dialed in.
Yeah, probably she could answer that for us. But do you remember the details of the dream?
It was a healing dream. And Asclepius made himself known in kind of the garb of a wizard, sort of. I don't know exactly how to describe it, but something along those lines. He didn't look modern. And he very plainly said who he was and what his purpose there was. And it was basically to teach our friend how to increase his healing powers, because he did help people with some pretty fascinating and remarkable healings, including helping an older member of his family reverse dementia, which was really impressive and incredible for us because our family has had some real issues with dementia in recent years. So knowing how pervasive, all-pervading that illness is, and knowing that this person really came out of the fog and had more quality of life for years because of his healing work with them. So yeah, he's a healer, all right.
And he helped me. Actually, I remember him coming to me in a dream, and he helped me with some personal healing as well.
So you have done shared dreaming?
I have a few times, but with him.
That's amazing. I actually have no conscious memories that I can think of shared dreaming, but I really think, like a lot of our nighttime experiences, it's something that probably everyone does, but they're not really cognizant of it. It's just a little much for the conscious mind, or the self-conscious, as Julie would call it.
Right. And in this dream of our friends, Asclepius is holding a staff, and it is actually the caduceus, right? That's how you pronounce that.
It is, but actually it's confusing because that's different. They are so similar, but they're different, and they have different origin points. I looked into this only because of him. He didn't really understand the significance of the staff either. He just knew what he had dreamed. He didn't know the name until he came to DreamSpeak and told us about it. And the staff of Asclepius, which is the one that is tied the most closely to the medical tradition, has a single serpent. And the caduceus has a double serpent. And some websites that I've read researching this say that the caduceus actually is not really connected to the medical tradition, but it's just a common sort of visual misnomer to use a double-sided staff instead of a single-sided staff. And I think the AMA uses the staff of they call it the rod of Asclepius with the single serpent.
Okay. Thanks for clearing that up.
That's more detail than anybody wants about the rod of Asclepius. You're welcome. This episode is about symbol and synchronicity. It's not about the rod of Asclepius.
So another highlight of this book is Julie actually gives us her process for going through a dream to help you to interpret a dream. And she came through this process, or the refining of this process, through a dream.
Yep.
No surprise. And she calls it the 7 steps in dream work.
That's right. And the dream, which she's got a really cool habit of titling important dreams. And that's something that we stumbled onto that can be really helpful with your dream interpretation as well. So if you're really drawn by the power of a certain dream, you might want to try giving it a title. This seems to really help get the main message, as she often calls it. So she titled that dream the 7 Stone Steps. And when she was interpreting, she realized that these very important seeming stone steps leading up to a beautiful edifice were her stages in the process of dream interpretation. And that's where she came up with the 7 steps in dream work framework that she gives in the book.
And she does include that in the book. She has sort of what she calls the dream diary quick view,
which is a single page you can copy and use.
Yeah.
Pretty neat.
And it's very similar to the way we interpret our dreams and the stages that we go through.
Yeah. It's always interesting to talk to other dream interpreters with the comparison and the contrast, but it's so easy for us to work alongside Julie because our philosophy of interpreting dreams is really similar.
It really is. And I think that's why we felt such resonance with this book and why we liked it so much, because it really was a great fit for us. And it's just an interesting book too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So like we were saying earlier in this episode, I think the content where she's really trying to teach you how to begin your dream interpretation on your own is sufficient for somebody that might be new to dream interpretation. For us, the journey of learning how to interpret dreams started with one good dream dictionary. And I was taking a class that went along with that dream dictionary. And actually partially finishing the class, now that I think about it, I didn't get all the way through that class. But between several of those lessons and the book, that was enough to get me going and to create that spark that any dream interpreter needs to stay on the path and, get enough of a grasp of the skill that they can start unlocking dreams. Because at first it can be a bit foggy and a bit mysterious. You might get a symbol here and a person there and think, oh, okay, I've got some insight here. And it all has value. But one day you get to a level, even early on it can happen, where you can unlock an entire dream. And then that's when I felt like, I'm sure that this is a language. This is all deliberate. These messages are being communicated to me. They want to be understood, and it's possible to understand them. And so in her book, she goes through the 7 steps in dream work and gives you some sections about common symbols. And she also gives you a few basic approaches to use. And I think it's enough to get started. So for some readers and some listeners, this may be the first book that they ever really use to get into this practice. It's a great book.
Yeah, and it is great for somebody who's just starting out. And I think it's interesting, her title, Symbol and Synchronicity. It doesn't even have the word dreams in it.
Yeah, only in the subtitle.
Right.
Learning the soul's language in dreams and waking life. But that's actually a great thing to talk about that we haven't touched on. Why do you think she didn't use dreams in her title?
Well, because I think Julie, kind of like we think of life as a continuum. Our waking life, our dream life, we don't really see it as, they occur at different times of the day, and we're sleeping when we're dreaming, but it's all very connected. And we, during our waking life, look at the symbols in our life and the relevance that they might have for us and the synchronicities in our life. And I think they happen both in waking life and dream life, and they're both important.
That's well said. I think that she shares that belief with us as well. And I would even offer in the part 1 of the book and even into part 2, she sheds a really wonderful light on how rich her waking symbolic approach to life is. And that might really resonate with some of our listeners. For me, most of my attention goes to symbolic meanings in my sleeping life, if you want to call it that. And I occasionally use things that I've learned from shamanism and personal experiences I've had to really hone in on synchronicities while I'm awake. But it seems like Julie Loar is really a master of that. She's excellent at working with the symbolic value of lived experiences that happen while we're waking. Mm-hmm. So I think for her, because that continuum concept is really important to help her readers understand, it's not just about dreaming. This is a window into the symbolic world around us, but there's symbolic meaning to many things that we experience in our life. So when the later part of the book occurs in part 3, 4, and 5, where she's really giving you tools, all of part 4 is basically a dream dictionary that she provides in the book.
And there's a lot of great symbols in there and definitions, but she also, on her website, has a very comprehensive supplement to her book now that I think she has kept continuing to add to, and
she must have worked on it for years because it's got hundreds of symbols.
Yeah, there's a lot of symbols on the supplement on her website.
If you enjoy the book, you're going to wind up wanting to see the rest of the Dream Dictionary.
Right.
So things that are covered, though, to wet your whistle in the Dream Dictionary that's actually in the book are people, clothing, buildings, colors and numbers, gems, animals of various types, and food, and also plants. So there's a pretty nice selection of symbols that could help a person get started.
For sure.
Yeah. And then one of the other things that I think is really neat about this book is in that last section, I think it's in part 3, she starts giving several examples in a row of using the 7 steps in dream work to apply to real dreams. Mm-hmm. So she has interpreted dreams and the story of important dreams or big dreams from her own life interspersed through the whole book. But when she gets into the concrete details of how you interpret dreams, then she gives a whole series of dreams interpreted with this system.
Yeah, it's great practice to have that, to see how it's actually done in real life.
Yeah, it's really helpful.
Yeah.
And that's why we recommend that people listen to as many episodes of our podcast as they can, because every one of them is about how do you take a dream that you could have on any given day and just really break that apart and wind up unlocking the whole thing. Mm-hmm. Just practice is the key.
Yes.
So in Julie's approach to dream interpretation, she identifies 3 primary types of symbols, what she calls a universal symbol, a cultural symbol, or a personal symbol. And this really interested me because this is one place where you can see overlap between our systems and also a divergence. Because what she means by universal symbol is things like when we say that water has to do with your emotions or has to do with your current life experience, that would be something that we believe is universally shared. Mm-hmm. Or when we say that food represents knowledge, that would be another example of something we think is universally shared. That's what she calls a universal symbol. Cultural symbols are things that she believes exist in the collective and have to do with our shared culture with other people. And then she has a whole world of personal symbols and personal associations. And she gives some pretty neat ideas for how you can develop your own personal dream dictionary and things like that.
Yeah.
Keep it in a journal. She's a great dream journaler, by the way. We got to see her dream journal. But anyway, we see it just a little bit differently. We lump cultural and universal symbols together, and we call those universal meanings. And then we believe that in order to understand anything symbolic in a dream, you need the universal meaning and you need the personal meaning at the same time. So we always help people to coax out personal meaning, talk about what the universal meaning is, and then we carry that through the whole dream as we're interpreting. So it's a little bit different.
What she calls cultural symbols could be examples of, flags of certain nations or sports teams, or, I don't know.
Famous animals that represent a culture like panda bears in China.
Right, or a dragon or something like that. But I guess we just sort of think of those as being universal symbols. Mm-hmm. But she just separates them out.
We've arrived at the end of our podcast. Hopefully you feel a lot more interested in the 7 steps in dream work. We do think that this book is a wonderful choice for somebody who may be just starting out, but we really think that it has something to offer for dream interpreters that have been working towards understanding their dreams for some time as well. Julie Loar offers a unique and highly refined perspective on how to work with one's dreams. I think that people that are in that boat will find the beginning part of the book, which is extensive, really interesting. The sleep science, the ancient science, the cultural history. And Julie Loar is a person who has so much to share that it is just really enjoyable to read this book. So again, the book is called Symbol and Synchronicity, Learning the Soul's Language in Dreams and Waking Life. And Julie Loar is an award-winning author who is available for dream work, consulting, teaching, and workshops via Zoom. She has written many books, including the Loar anthology, Goddesses for Every Day, her novel Messengers, and Tarot and Dream Interpretation. Visit her today at julieloar.com to learn more, and this book is available on her site as well as on Amazon.
Yes.
Thanks for learning with us today on DreamSpeak, and we look forward to learning with you on the next episode.
You can find this podcast on all popular streaming services. Email us a dream today at contact@dreamspeak.us. Check out our YouTube channel for a free introductory dream course. Connect with DreamSpeak for even more learning. Our socials are in the description. Our theme music was composed by me, Rika. This podcast does not constitute medical advice. If you have concerns about your well-being, talk to your doctor or a mental health professional.